next hour alone, we're going to be talking with Michael Babcock over at TMZ about ABC's suspension of late night host Jimmy Kimmel, what that means for Kimmel, what that means for the future of late night, what that means for President Donald Trump. Also, we're going to be talking with Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi about your taxes, when we can expect that bill, a little bit delayed, and are we moving up or down that scale? But first, we are leading off. It's Rail Safety Week, and a little bit ironic that it is Rail Safety Week because just recently Hinsdale police issuing a safety warning because a commuter was spotted crawling under a stopped Metra train. We're going to talk with Hinsdale Deputy Chief Tom Lillie and Village President Greg Hart. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Lots to talk about in regards to this. I appreciate your time. Thanks for having us, Jake. Of course. I didn't think we had to lead off with this, but maybe we have to. Maybe we should be telling people, don't crawl under a parked train. Can you just, for people who maybe did not see this video that's gone viral, we've aired it a lot on Fox 32. Can you just give just a brief recap of basically what we're talking about that sort of yielded this conversation?
Yeah, sure. So somebody locally had actually witnessed this person crawl underneath this train at about 8:20 in the morning on September 8th. And they alerted a local social media page. So we catch this a couple days later and actually go through our cameras and try to identify if this did in fact happen. And sure enough, we reviewed our cameras and we were able to determine the time and the location of it, and thought that we'd use the opportunity to send out to emphasize awareness of Rail Safety Week, and certainly we were able to do that.
Now, I want to ask you guys, obviously this is just a single incident that has gone viral and a lot of people are talking about, but by no means is it just this one case issue. Is it safe in saying this is a more of a wider spread issue? Maybe not necessarily a person crawling under the train, but maybe people not being smart in regards to crossing the ways or going around a train or basically maneuvering in such a way that's just not safe for them. Have you guys found lately, whether it's in Hinsdale or just from what you guys have heard in other towns or in the area, that it's a bigger issue that you guys are experiencing?
Well, this isn't the first time that we've had incidents of this nature in Hinsdale. It's obviously been the first time that's been recorded, and that's why it's been so shocking for everyone. And we're by no means an outlier. I know many other towns along the BNSF line have dealt with the same thing. I think the positive thing to mention, Jake, is that overall rail-related civilian deaths have actually gone down over the last 10 years. Right now, they're really, if there's an area to focus, it's mostly pedestrian and sadly dealing with suicides. But needless to say, Hinsdale's taking this very seriously. That's why we proclaimed this week as Rail Safety Week by proclamation at our most recent board meeting. And we believe a large part of this is, yes, the enforcement, which we fully intend to do, because ultimately that commuter who made that very faulty decision not only risked her life, but she also broke the law. So that's something we take very seriously. But a lot of this is about awareness, and that's why we feel like we have to do our part to get the word out that nothing is worth risking your life over, and especially around the train tracks, you need to be vigilant.
Well, you mentioned risking your life, and that's the thing too. We're talking about this story and we're showing the video, and a lot of us are sort of shaking our head, going, "What are you doing under the train?" But it's important to emphasize to some people who maybe aren't sort of connecting, what could possibly happen. I mean, the idea being, we never know when these trains are going to start moving. We never know whether it's going forward, whether it's going back. I mean, it's important to emphasize to people, as not to get overly dramatic, but what could actually happen when something as simple as, well, I'm just going to walk really quick in front of this train. It's one way or the other, it's never a good idea.
Absolutely, and I'd love if Chief chimed in, because I'm sure he's seen more than I have. But the one thing to note is that not only the train that this individual went underneath could have moved when she was doing that, resulting in serious injury or death, but oftentimes if you're making that decision, you can't see what's going on the other two tracks that are aligning it, and you don't know if another train is coming in a certain direction. So it was incredibly risky, incredibly reckless, and that's why we view it as a positive thing that if there is silver lining, the word's getting out and the attention is being paid on this incident so that people know not to do it themselves.
Speaking of the word getting out, Chief, if you wouldn't mind, what are you guys doing in the area in Hinsdale to kind of, sort of curb this, I don't want to call it a trend, but sort of, dissuade people from doing things like this?
Yeah, so I mean, we've always been active in rail safety and education and enforcement. So I mean, we look at this scenario as kind of an anomaly. I mean, I have personally not seen anyone do that with a commuter train. I mean, I have seen people go around stopped freight trains that have been sitting on the tracks for a long time, but this is kind of an anomaly. But I mean, we're going to continue doing what we've always done, awareness, education, enforcement if we have to. And again, we just wanted to use this video as just getting the word out and, let people know that, bring awareness to the Rail Safety Week.
You mentioned enforcement. If someone does get popped to doing that, what would you say? What would you say a ticket fine is for someone that gets caught doing that?
There's a $500 mandatory fine on top of whatever consequences that that commuter would have to deal with Metra. I mean, I know that usually a conductor wouldn't allow somebody to get on the train if they're witness doing that, or potentially trespass them. So I mean, there's a number of consequences they themselves can approach with. But with us, it would be a mandatory $500 fine.
And Jake, if I may go back to what the village is doing, in addition to what Chief said, pedestrian safety has been a big issue here in Hinsdale and across many different communities for a variety of reasons. We are actually undergoing a pedestrian safety study and analysis dating back to early May. As a result of this incident, given that it was an outlier but still very serious, we have been collecting data on pedestrian movements across the train tracks as part of the study. We're certainly going to look at opportunities for improvement, and then we are definitely going to bring that to Metra and the BNSF line to see where we might be able to collaborate. And if something needs to be done, we'll certainly take action because public safety is our biggest priority.
Greg, you said you guys have been working on that since May. Have you guys discovered anything? Have there been any trends that maybe have surprised you?
We're going to be releasing more information on that shortly. We had a consultant reviewing a lot of the data, and we're going to be working with them over the next couple months to really hone in on the recommendations and then bring that to the board. So more to come. But we're really looking forward to seeing what that data yields, because there is a lot of interest in this. And ultimately, we want to make sure that Hinsdale remains the great place to live that it is. And I think this is one area where our residents expect a lot of attention being placed.
So many of us grew up, just with the railroad, the little arms coming down, and that's the universal sign to stop, to don't go. Is there new technology at all that's being developed, or things that you guys are seeing that's helping prevent people from doing stuff like this, or are we still relying on the old school arms coming down?
Yeah, I mean, the arms have been effective, and the bells and the lights and kind of what has always been in place. I think this is a case where poor decision making kind of comes in more into play than anything here. But we're at our crossings right now. We're utilizing our arms and lights and bells and cameras. So we think that is pretty effective.
And then additionally, Jake, the four-way stops are a big help in this case, especially when it comes to traffic going over the tracks. We have an active resident in town who actually created the DuPage Railroad Safety Council after his own tragic incident with a rail death in his own family. And some of the things that they've recommended is putting those four-way stops at all crossings. But then drone technology is actually something that's really making its way into safety, seeing how we can leverage drones to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again.
You brought up an interesting point. We're talking a lot about pedestrians doing this. It's not always just to someone walking across the track. Vehicles play a part in this as well. So have you guys found that people behind the wheel sometimes are not necessarily even following the law?
I think a lot of it has to do with hurry, the effort that everyone's in a hurry, right? Everyone's busy. We all understand that. But again, similar to how this commuter ran across the track because she likely wanted to get on that train, many times if a car's trying to dart or outrace the gates going down, the same type of terrible outcome can happen. So again, nothing is too important than risking your life. So we encourage everyone, whether they're in an automobile or walking across the tracks, to follow the same rule of thumb that safety is the utmost priority.
We've mentioned Metra a few times. I'm curious, are you guys in communication with Metra? Is there sort of a collaborative effort? Is there anything you guys need from them? Is there anything they need from you?
We're in constant communication with all our intergovernmental partners. This is something that's obviously gotten a lot of attention, and I know we've had communication with Metra and the train line. That's something that isn't just unique to this case. It's an ongoing open communication channel, but especially when it deals with any safety-related issues, we're definitely in contact.
And it boils down to, and you said this earlier, and it's a great point. At the end of the day, it all comes down to people being in a hurry, people trying to catch that train. They're running 5 minutes late. They didn't grab their coffee or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, being 10 minutes late to work is not worth losing your life over. Are there any final sort of thoughts that you really want to make sure people are aware of before they do something that they think in their head is a smart idea, but ultimately could end up, costing them their lives?
I'll go first. I absolutely would say awareness is a big piece of success in this matter. Again, there is a mental health component that plays into this, just given that most of the incidents are pedestrian. So you'll see signage along the train tracks. If you see anything that's occurring that could result in injury or death based on an independent observation, please call the numbers that are listed on the train signage and get people the help that they need. But again, make smart decisions. Obviously, we're here to be partners, but ultimately this is individual responsibility that comes into play, and we just encourage everyone to heed the advice of Rail Safety Week and be careful around the tracks.
Absolutely. Chief?
Yeah, just echoing President Hart's comments there. I mean, this is a decision-making issue here with this pedestrian, and could have been fatal. Thankfully, it was not.
Gentlemen, President Hart, Chief Lillie, guys, thank you so much for taking the time. This is an important issue, and like I said, a lot of it sounds common sense, but I think a lot of us could use just a reminder on things from time to time, and we really do appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
All right, guys, we're going to run to break. We got a lot coming up, including we're going to chat with TMZ about the suspension of late-night host Jimmy Kimmel, what this means for the future of late-night host, and why President Trump is very happy about it. We'll tell you more coming up. Welcome back, 114. Welcome back to Chicago Live. I'm Jake Hamilton. Arguably, not just the biggest talker in the world of entertainment, but breaking out of the entertainment beat into the world of politics, the suspension of late-night host Jimmy Kimmel by ABC following remarks that he made about the assassination of Charlie Kirk during his Monday night monologue. We're going to head over to our friends at TMZ, Mr. Michael Babcock. Always love chatting with you, Michael. Thank you for taking the time, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, Jake, anytime. Thank you for having me.
Of course. For people, I've seen a lot of people commenting on this story and then adding the line in, well, I'm not entirely sure what he said, but. So before we get into this conversation, can we just clarify exactly what it was that Kimmel said on his show?
Absolutely. And I think people have probably incorrectly described it as comments about Charlie Kirk. Really what it was about was, and like you said, this was Monday night during the monologue, what the comments were really about was, one, the assassin's motives, the Charlie Kirk assassin's motives, and Donald Trump's reaction to Charlie Kirk's death. So those were the two main points and the controversial points that Jimmy Kimmel made on Monday during the show. There was almost immediate backlash Monday night, Tuesday morning, over a lot of people that were talking about it, and to include the President of the United States and the Commissioner of the FCC. Now, there was seemingly pressure put on ABC, and obviously we have known what action they took. But yeah, that's what the comments were. So not even necessarily about Charlie Kirk's death, but about, again, the reaction and the motive.
And I think that clarification is really important. I know the story broke yesterday afternoon. It doesn't really seem like there have been a ton of developments. Obviously, there have been, reactions out of Hollywood and the unions.
Yeah.
Is there any indicator one way or the other whether this is a temporary suspension or whether or not the show is going to be canceled? Because didn't he just recently re-up his contract?
Yeah. There is no indication from ABC, but I think, and just reading between the lines a little bit here, and having talked to some people who are familiar with Jimmy's thinking after this move, it would be hard for me right now, at least, to imagine him being back on those airwaves. I think there is an enormous fracture in the relationship between the network executives and Jimmy Kimmel. And again, it's really hard for me to imagine him being back on that show at any point. So while not technically fired, and while the show has not been canceled, it's just an indefinite suspension, which of course could mean he theoretically would be back tomorrow or next week. I don't think that's going to happen. It's tough for me to imagine.
Now, obviously, neither of us know the details of his contract, but in a situation like this, will Disney try to find reason to not pay him out? I mean, if he just signed a multi-year contract, that's a lot of money that's up in the air right now. Right. Is it a situation where Kimmel would be paid out through his contract, or do you think ABC would try to use this as cause as a way to get out of it?
That's a great question. That's a great point. I am sure, because like you said, I mean, Jimmy Kimmel makes an enormous amount of money. That's one of the controversies in the conversation surrounding these late night shows and whether or not they do continue or not. The ratings not necessarily there anymore, but the paychecks really certainly are. So I am sure they would love to be able to say, hey, we're letting you go, Jimmy, with cause. You made these comments. They were not just inappropriate, but they were inaccurate. And maybe there is a way for them to at least try to get out of what will surely be tens of millions of dollars in contract money. Obviously, Jimmy Kimmel's not, I can say for a fact, is not going to just sit back and allow that to happen without fighting back. So we may be headed ultimately for a battle in court here. That might be where this likely ends up.
Yeah, it's most definitely not going to be a story that's wrapping up anytime soon. No. It does not, I think, surprise either of us that there has been a lot of reaction out of Hollywood, most of it in support of Jimmy Kimmel. But there's also been reaction out of the unions, out of SAG-AFTRA and out of the Writers Union, of which I'd imagine Jimmy Kimmel is actually probably a part of both.
Yes.
It's one thing to have Gene Smart post on Instagram in your favor. It's another thing to have the unions come out on your behalf. Yeah. Is there any power to be had from the unions supporting Jimmy Kimmel? Can he get behind them? Would they stand up on his behalf, or is it just kind of a shake of the fist in solidarity?
Yeah, I think probably more of a shake of the fist. I don't know that in this situation that the union has any sort of power to force ABC or to cause them to change course, reverse course here. I think it's more just letting everybody know where they stand and that they have expressed displeasure here. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, I think you can have people who listen to the comments from Monday night and say, I don't like that. I think it was inappropriate the way he characterized the shooter's motives are incorrect. But I also think that we've got to be cognizant that this is a slippery slope. And even if you agree with the administration now and you say, okay, I'm on board with them, I'm aligned with them, there will be a next administration and one after that. And I think anyone, especially if you talk for a living, it's impossible to not be a little bit concerned, I think, after something like this happens, because, it's the First Amendment for a reason, right? And we want to make sure we maintain our free speech. So it's a tricky issue. It's a polarizing issue. And I don't think this is something that's going away anytime soon, like you said.
Michael, you mentioned this being a tricky issue. And just to give some kind of behind the scenes perspective to our viewers, we don't have like a teleprompter here on Chicago Live. It's just you and I talking. Yeah. And throughout the morning, we've been talking about this topic alongside myself and my co-anchors on the show. And I think everyone is just being so particularly careful in their word choice of how they're going about describing the events of what happened leading up to the suspension of Kimmel. Just, you mentioned anyone who talks for a living, which obviously you and I do. Yeah. What is the vibe over at TMZ? Is it just because right now there is such a walking on eggshells and making sure you don't say the wrong thing and making sure nothing that you say could be misconstrued on social media. How are you guys feeling right now?
Yeah, people in our newsroom, I think that's a great question. And I had never heard anything like this said before. And I've been doing this here now for almost 12 years. They said, I heard for the first time today, people say that they were scared. They were watching their words and they were frightened about what could potentially happen depending on what they said. So it's, again, I've never experienced that. We've covered a lot of stories, controversial stuff, not controversial stuff. First time I'd ever heard anything said like that today.
We talked a lot about reactions out of Hollywood, which there have been plenty. There are a lot of reactions from the unions. Correct me if I'm wrong. One reaction we have not gotten is from Kimmel himself. Is that correct?
That's right. All we've got, the only kind of semblance of anything is Jimmy kind of rushing into his car last night and did not say anything. But there are reports out there, and I've also heard from somebody who knows him that, not very happy at all. Furious, as a matter of fact, at the decision.
President Trump had said, he praised ABC for, I believe the quote was, having the courage to do the right thing. But then, correct me if I'm wrong, he also name-dropped Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon as being the next to go. What does this mean for the future of late night? And is this you mentioned this administration, but yes, other administrations will come. Is this a temporary halt in sort of what has been a staple of television history? Yeah. Or are we actually looking at the end of late night television as we know it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I wish I had the answer to that. Obviously now he wanted Stephen Colbert gone. Colbert is gone. Kimmel probably gone, at least for the time being he is. And he has President Trump made it clear that he is going out or wants those two other guys gone. And does he put his finger on the scale there, and does he try and make that happen? I could see the industry late night regulating a little bit, and perhaps it comes a little bit back towards the center, which I think it's probably aired a little to the left here, obviously, or I could see those guys gone. And I think those are the two possibilities here. It doesn't seem sustainable that we continue like we are right now. I just don't see how it works. So something's going to have to give. What is it going to be? Are those guys going to be out, or does late night change as a whole and go back to a little bit like it used to be with the Leno and Letterman days and even before?
Well, what it is going to be is, at least for some of the shows on air tonight, I feel like all of us are going to be watching what Colbert says, what Myers says, what Fallon says. Absolutely. I mean, do you expect those guys to go out in support of Kimmel on their shows tonight? Or Colbert's got nothing to lose. I mean, he'll go out there, So what do you expect the other guys to do?
Great point. Yeah, I think Colbert, I would be shocked if he didn't say anything. It'll be interesting to see the other two guys, Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon. Are they feeling the pressure? If they don't say anything, maybe that perhaps indicates that they are. And maybe they say, hey, I'm feeling the pressure. I don't care, and I'm going to speak my mind. That wouldn't shock me either. I think tonight, you're going to have a lot of people tuning into late night TV. Maybe people who hadn't been watching, they probably do tune in tonight.
Michael, I don't ask this question to imply anything, but it doesn't change the fact that the Next Star stations, the ABC stations, were the ones that initially started the sort of this precedent of we're not going to air Kimmel. And Next Star, correct me if I'm wrong, is in the midst of a merger. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
And is that
and the FCC needs to sign off on it?
Exactly. It is a merger that needs to be signed off by the FCC. And is that at all similar to the Paramount merger that was going on while Colbert was being why Colbert ended up being fired?
Yeah, I think you could definitely draw a parallel there. The reality is you're talking about big mergers that need the FCC sign off. And, Brendan Carr is in charge of the FCC, and he works for Donald Trump. And I think absolutely, there's a parallel to be made there. There are similarities. And I know a lot of people have looked at that and they have said that was the kind of the leverage that the administration had, and that's why they could get ABC then to do what they wanted them to ultimately do. I think that matters so much. If ABC just said, I don't like Jimmy's comments and the ratings are not great and we're going to move on, I think that's their prerogative. I think if the government starts getting involved, that might be where you're seeing a line cross. So that's the big question.
But the ratings conversation is such an interesting one, because I've seen a lot of people who I've never heard talk about ratings ever bring up ratings today. But correct me if I'm wrong, the general perspective of ratings has changed. Like how the way people watch late night, very few people watch it live on the air. Right. It's viral videos, it's YouTube, it's TikTok. I mean, necessarily throwing out the linear ratings from overnight, is that as much of an argument as people seem to think it is?
No, I don't think it is. And you can it's not just late night. I mean, there are other forms of entertainment now. We've all got our phones, and we know that's changed things. So you can compare Johnny Carson's ratings to Jimmy Kimmel if you want to, but they're not going to look anything alike. So yes, I think that is probably unfair to just look at the ratings. Does late night as a whole have the impact that it used to have? No, it doesn't. But that's just the reality, and that's nothing new. You've mentioned the contract that Jimmy might have gotten recently. ABC obviously couldn't have been too unhappy with him if they had extended him. So yeah, it's such a complicated issue, and the First Amendment here, I think, in many ways is on the line.
Very, very much. I feel like we're just turning the first page of what this is going to be, a multi-chapter story. I mean, it's not even the first page, because Colbert was a part of this a couple of weeks back. Michael Babcock, TMZ. Thank you for an amazing conversation, man. I always love chatting with you, and I know you guys got a lot going on today, so thank you for your time.
Anytime. Thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate you, brother.
Soon.
All right, guys.
Bye.
It is 1:27. We're going to take a quick break. Chicago Live will be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. It is 1:30. I think the only thing more beautiful than the gorgeous weather that is directly in front of us,
your blue eyes,
Fox 32. The way they cut away from you in that moment. No, don't go back. Fox 32 meteorologist Caitlin Cody. Caitlin,
Jake.
you know, there is that. Have you seen that scale that people post on social media about different periods? It's not just fall, spring, winter, summer. It's like, you know,
construction
fall
season.
Construction, false fall,
yes,
you know,
yes,
and then
yes.
second summer.
Uh-huh.
Is this what you call? Because we had that brief period where like, oh, we're brought out the
know
jackets.
it.
Is this second? Would you call this
Sure.
that brief second summer?
Does my Texas boy like this heat?
Loves it.
Loves it.
Loves it.
I've gotten mixed reviews. Okay.
Why?
Because I think what happened was, like you said, we had that fake fall,
Which happens every year.
and so everybody got excited.
Yeah. Because
They
in
got
the
their
same way, that, remember, we
PSLs.
always had that fake spring. Around March, we'll have a week of like spring-like weather, and then it swings
Then
back
we get
into
slapped in
winter.
the
Yeah,
face.
exactly right. It
Which,
happens.
you know,
But we're
winter-
surprised every year.
Every year, and the heat continues. Actually, today, mid-80s inland. Look at this. Is that the taxi, the water taxi?
Yeah, it does look like that. Yeah.
Or it's a
This
tour?
is- yeah, water taxi. And Sylvia Perez is probably on there.
That should be the middle of July picture there.
I love
yeah.
it.
No, it is. It's definitely toasty.
Come on, look at that.
Cooler near the lake though, so that's something else I mentioned on the noon show is I don't want to hear complaints if you're downtown today because it actually is very comfortable and it has been.
I'm
downtown.
taking the dog for a walk as soon as I'm done.
Yeah. Temperatures inland though, my goodness, 86 degrees. Now tomorrow we have a few changes coming. First, the clouds are going to be building. We have a small chance for wet weather in the western counties tomorrow afternoon and evening. Better potential for rain though is back Friday night, scattered showers and storms. And then this weekend, hit or miss rain. Temperatures hovering right around 80 degrees this weekend. Next week, the 70s, but the chance for rain continues on.
Okay, but see, so I look at like Saturday through Tuesday, and that looks intense, but it's just the potential
Yeah,
for.
it's
Like
not
you have
gonna
to
be
put that
all
little
day.
graphic on there with the lightning and all that
Sure.
sort of stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those 4 days are going to be just a washout.
You got to stay inside and play board
Well,
games.
I was going to ask you, the thing that we always selfishly do with our meteorologist is when we have flights, we run to you and go, am I going to get
I
out?
like how you say we, because I'm pretty sure it's just you.
Well, I have a flight this week. I'm going to New York on Saturday for work.
What time?
11? Oh, no. Am I going to get delayed?
There's going to be rain around.
Okay, all right.
Especially the models are showing early, and then even in the afternoon, some spotty showers and storms. But what I've been saying today is download our Fox 32 weather app.
Which is great, by the way. I have it on my
Yes.
phone.
So if the skies look like they're getting dark, just look at your app because you can look at the radar, see where it's raining, and see where those thunderstorms are headed. So don't cancel your plans if you're going to the apple orchard this weekend. But just know that there is a chance for a little bit of rain. So it's not going to be a washout. I'm leaning into here like you can't hear me if I stand this far away.
It's a good little podcast. I like it.
Yeah,
it's
I like
it's a
it.
good
But
vibe.
anyway, yeah. So a great forecast today,
Yeah.
especially. It's going to be quiet, sunny, and hot.
I love the app. You guys do amazing stuff. The only thing
Well,
better
thank
than checking out the app is having you here in person.
Thank you, Jake.
So,
I appreciate
it's
it.
a beautiful day. We appreciate you. I feel like you guys get blamed when the weather's bad, so we're going to give you credit when the weather's good.
You know, thanks. Grab your sunglasses.
All right. Caitlin Cody, Fox 32 meteorologist.
Okay, bye, Jake.
Amazing person. Great mother. We love you. Keep going. Beautiful day. All right, guys. Moving on. Taxes. Death and taxes. It's the only two things guaranteed. A lot of people wanting to know what's happening. When are the bills coming? And are we going to be paying more or less than we did in the last cycle? Maybe the person who could answer that question best, Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi. Mr. Kagi, how are you, sir? Good to see you. Do me a favor. I think you might be muted. I actually see your little mute. Could you unmute yourself? There you
I
go.
love seeing that visual that you had going into the weather segment showing the cranes going up building those new apartment towers. I love it.
I bet so. You know, it's so funny. We were just talking about that. Yeah, you could see it right there to the left, sort of that spire that's coming up. This is not too dissimilar from my view. I've been watching that spire, and it's incredible how fast that thing has come up. It's wild.
We really have productive construction workers in here. People are ready to work, and it's great to see them going up.
I can't remember the last time I looked out of my window and didn't see someone over there working or doing something. Mr. Kagi, so much to talk to you about. I want to start out just by talking, obviously, those tax bills. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they were initially expected August 1st. They obviously have been delayed a little bit. I'd love to know what is the latest. Is it still the tech issues that are causing you guys some problems?
realtor has to work with a vendor on a software implementation. And I think when the treasurer decides she's good and ready to send them out, she will be sending them out. And I expect them to be out shortly.
When you say shortly, I don't want you to put a necessarily date on it, but are we talking weeks? Are we talking months potentially? Or what would you?
This one is the treasurer's call. She has to sign off on whether everything looks good from the vendor, and only she can do that. So I can't speak for her.
Fair enough. Well, a lot of people obviously are anxious to get those bills to sort of see, compared to sort of the last cycle, what they can expect out of their tax bills. Obviously, you guys have told us that a lot of people have seen sort of decreases in their tax bills. But I'll be honest with you, sir, there are a lot of people, at least here in the Fox 32 newsroom, who I've spoken with, a lot of people in the suburbs who say, you know what? They've gone up. They've seen quite an increase. To the person who has seen their taxes go up within sort of the past few cycles, past few years, what would you say to that person?
Well, first of all, there have been a lot of people whose bills have spiked. We know of, there are almost 250,000 households whose bills spiked 25% or more in one of the last 3 years. We just reassessed Chicago. And just like in each of the last 4 years, homeowners' share of the burden fell in our part of the reassessment. But there is a second part of the story that is putting more burden on the homeowners. And this sort of goes to the report that the University of Chicago just came out with, showing that the work that we've done at the assessor's office has really taken a lot of burden off of homeowners. People who own homes under $500,000, about the bottom 70% of homeowners, that showed about $2 billion came off them that would have been on them. But it said a second part is that this other part of Cook County government, the board review, is making such big cuts on commercial that it's shifting more burden back onto homeowners. And this is going to happen in Chicago again this year. About 5% of Chicago's tax burden is coming on the homeowners from commercial because the board review cut commercial so disproportionately.
Why is that? Why is it that the commercial property owners seem to have a much easier time getting a break or getting the deductions or whatever the case may be compared to someone who just owns a home?
Well, actually, the county just convened a big study group to figure out why. Why are assessments coming out so much lower at the board of review than at the assessor's office? It showed that the assessor's office numbers for commercial were actually much closer to market, just like homeowners' values are. And it came up with several dozen recommendations to improve that, behind those recommendations, because we don't want the burdens to fall disproportionately onto homeowners. We want the work that we've done to reduce the disparity. There used to be a bias against lower value homeowners, people who own homes against under $500,000, and they were underassessed for people above $500,000. The University of Chicago showed that we'd eliminate that. Now we want to eliminate the disparity in commercial assessments, which is why that Cook County study group is so important in following the recommendations.
What are those recommendations, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, the recommendations, one, are adopting a new methodology, basically that focuses on better estimating the costs of running a commercial property. It showed that the past methodology was overestimating those costs and so underestimating the value. And so it recommends that we in the board review arrive at a new methodology. We have done that. We're waiting for the board review to follow through, work with us and implement that. So that's the most important thing in that recommendation. Also calls for more collaboration on data, passage on a law on commercial data collection. There's some other technical aspects. We're behind him 100%. And we're following through on the recommendations.
This is such a broad overview question, but for someone watching at home who is a homeowner, who, they get their tax bill and maybe their finger is not on the pulse of sort of the details of what makes their taxes go up or down. Can you just sort of explain in a Cliff Notes version to someone at home, what are the things that are happening that is making either their tax bill go up or down?
Well, there are several different things. The most important thing is to make sure that the system is estimating the value of your home correctly. That is the most important thing that you can do. And just check in your reassessment notice or go to our website, cookcountyassessor.com, to go and see, what did we estimate the value of your home to be? A lot of people have a good sense, and you can always check on things like Zillow, what the market is saying your property might be worth. Make sure that we haven't overestimated it. That's one. And you have a right to appeal it, especially tell us if your home hasn't been renovated for a long time or if there are other things that detract from its value. Second of all, make sure you've got your exemptions. In this report that we just came out with that looks at Chicago's reassessment, it shows that in almost every neighborhood of Chicago, prices have gone up in the last 3 years. And actually, the ones that are most affordable have been in the highest demand. So values have gone up a lot. Now, that's great for people who bought homes. They've stuck it through. They've made money on their investment. But some people might not be signed up for exemptions. And their tax bills might have been relatively low if they lived in Chicago and they had a low-valued home. But now that those values are going up, we want to make sure as everyone's signed up for those exemptions. 1 out of 3 homeowners has not yet done that. So let's save $1,000 per home, guys, and get signed up, especially if you're a senior. The senior freeze locks in place your assessment regardless if values are going up around you. It helps keeps our seniors in place. We want to make sure that everyone is getting that. And we're actually working on legislation that would allow for automatic renewal for the freeze so that our 100,000 seniors don't have to go through the rigmarole of demonstrating their income every year. Those are the most important things to look at. The other things that can drive up your taxes are if our taxing bodies, like our city council or our public schools, are raising taxes. That's something we can't control at the assessor's office. And also, there are other things. If there's a shift in burden between commercial and residential, that's what's happened to our neighbors in the south suburbs. The Board of Review has cut commercial properties so substantially the last few years that it caused homeowners' bills to go up 20%, but commercial bills went down 8%. And we think that doesn't match what's going on in the market. So these are all these things that can drive people's bills. What you should do is take control of what you can as a homeowner, make sure your assessment's right, and make sure you're getting your exemptions.
Well, Mr. Kagi, you mentioned taking control. Can we circle back around to the appeals for someone that gets their home value and maybe it's not exactly what it was that they're looking at? What is the appeals process for them? What are their options from that point?
Sure. So there are actually 4 different ways to appeal your value. You can first of all do it at our office. It's free. You do not need a lawyer. Actually, people who appeal on their own are more successful than if they hire a lawyer. If you do, please shop around just like you would for a pair of jeans or for any other service that you use. The most important thing is to tell us in your appeal about your home something that we don't already know. A lot of people spend time researching comps when they actually should be telling us about their home and the narrative about if your home hasn't been renovated since the Truman administration, that means it shouldn't be compared to an average home. It should be compared to a below average home. And you can tell us that in the narrative. You can also appeal at the Cook County Board of Review. You can also do this at the Illinois Property Tax Appeals Board. Use your township assessor if you live in the suburbs. They work for you for free. And they're another resource, so you don't have to hire a lawyer. That's one of the things that people get a lot of come-ons in the mail. People are the biggest experts on their own home, and you should bring that data forward in your appeal. It's very easy to do. It takes just a couple minutes. And we give you the benefit of the doubt when you do make that appeal.
Fair enough. Cook County Assessor, Mr. Fritz Kagi. Mr. Kagi, this is a lot of great information. I know you have a lot going on right now, so I really do appreciate you taking the time, sir.
Well, glad to be there with everyone out there. Hope to see you again.
All right, you too, sir. All right, guys, just about 1:44. We are going to take a quick break. Chicago Live rolls on. We'll be right back. just about 1:46. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We're getting word that the Trump administration is cutting funding to a key cybersecurity tool that is used by law enforcement throughout the country. So we wanted to find the foremost authority on who could help us learn a little bit about what's going on. Fox Tech reporter Eben Brown out of Miami. Eben, Jake Hamilton talking to you from Chicago. A pleasure, man. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure, Jake. Good to be with you.
So tell us a little bit about, just first of all, what this tool is and why is the funding being cut by the Trump administration?
Well, the thing is, you probably have never heard of this before. Most people haven't. So everyone that might be scratching their heads might be going, gee, I didn't even know we had one of these. But it's called the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Sounds very high tech, very important. And that's because it is. What it has been sort of this clearinghouse and center-focused resource for local and state law enforcement all around the country, all around the United States, including the territories, to be able to coordinate and share information, but also kind of get clued in to cyber threats that local police and state police have often been tasked with handling. Very so often, I think we think of some kind of elite federal agent team from some, agency with 3 letters in the name, responding to cyber threats and whatnot. And that does happen, of course. But a lot of that is also done by your local police, your county sheriff's office, for instance. And they can't necessarily do this entirely on their own. So they have had this federal help in terms of this clearinghouse called the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Well, the budget is being cut on this operation. It's something that's cost billions of dollars over the course of many years, and the Trump administration thinks they can be done away with. That being said, a lot of local police officers and local sheriff's departments have kind of rang the alarm bell here, saying, wait a second, we really can't do this kind of work without this type of resource. And if we have to start paying for it ourselves, it's going to completely blow out our budgets. And what's really interesting here, or not interesting, but maybe kind of hard to hear, is that there are billions of dollars worth of local cybersecurity grants that the Department of Homeland Security makes available to all of these local entities. Again, sheriff's office, local police departments. But there's a caveat. You can't use that grant money to pay for the Multi-State Informational Sharing and Analysis Center on your own. You have to come up with your own money for it. And it's kind of a head scratcher for, I think, these local police agencies because the system, as far as they've been concerned, has been working. But come the end of the month, they're going to have to do something else, and it may cost them a lot more money at the local end to do it, to keep up what they've been doing. And a lot of it, when we talk about cybersecurity, it's everything from fraud investigations, all those emails you get asking for money, and some people who still fall victim to those, or even having to do with things like terrorism and even threats that are made locally. I can tell you the little Miami suburb that I live in, our local police department, it feels like at least once a week, is busting some teenager who posted a threat against his school, mostly because he or she was upset about something going on at school, and it's a need for intervention, but it's still a crime. But a lot of this stuff is clued into through these federal resources that local police have had the ability to tap into, and that may be in danger come the end of the month.
Eben, I gotta admit to you, I am a little surprised, as I'd imagine some people are, that so much of cybersecurity is done on a local level. For anyone watching at home, for myself, for you, if this doesn't end up getting paid for, what does that mean for us exactly?
Well, that's the big question here, because if it can't be paid for at the local level, then they might have to go without this resource or try to cobble together some other resources where they can share information, they can share expertise. Now, that may sound inexpensive to you at the moment when we're talking about people having conversations, but if it involves technology, advanced technology, stuff that you can't just simply order off the shelf, right? That's where things can get expensive, and it has to do with those kinds of resources. Now, maybe there is a way for some kind of state-level sharing or county-wide sharing. A county sheriff could could try to do something that they work in tandem with the police departments within their county. You know how they have these different levels of law enforcement where everyone lives. Maybe that's a way to begin to try to combat the problem. But a lot of these sheriff's offices, it's the elected sheriffs, many of who, by the way, are big fans of President Trump and what the Trump administration is doing in terms of cleaning up all sorts of crime. They're kind of raising their hand going, wait a second, I don't think maybe you meant to do this, Trump administration, but this is going to be a little problematic for us. Now, why exactly the Trump administration wants to eliminate this resource, they haven't said. Maybe they think they can do better. Maybe they think this has been something wasteful that needs attention. And by putting it back to the state and local level, it begins to balance out that financial equation, if you will. But a lot of these agencies are saying, wait a second, we're not equipped to handle this. We used to maybe have one or two of our officers handle cybersecurity matters. Now half my department has to deal with this in some way or another. And that gets very taxing the more local you get and the more smaller you get. Big city police departments may have thousands of officers at their disposal, but you go to smaller towns where they're incorporated and they have their own police department, but maybe they've got 10 officers grand total, right? And they're busy catching speeders and catching people committing physical world, real world crimes. And now to get them to have to park themselves in front of a computer, it may not be the best use of their resources, and that's where the confusion sets in.
Well, you know, I know I just expressed my disbelief that so much of this was done at the local level, but to your point, the example of the high school kid in the Miami suburb who posted something on his high school's page. I mean, if we're talking about making this sort of a national effort, I imagine it's going to be much harder for them to get hyper local like that. It kind of makes sense that this is something that needs to be done at a local level. Am I reading that right?
I think you're reading it right. The question is who's going to pay for it, right?
Sure. That's always the question.
Right? So the question is does this is this a move for better governance and better budget control, or is it a political move, of course, to put the onus back on state and local governments, saying, hey, you come up with the money for this type of resource, not at the federal end, because the federal government's got a lot of other things to spend money on. And of course, when we talk about any government spending money, we're talking about spending our money. It's all through taxes. So maybe this is something that puts the pressure on state and local governments to find the money for, to keep the federal government out of it. But at the same time, if in fact local governments are the ones that have to start paying for this, it may not be as big of a program, or as big of an agency, or as big as an effort because of affordability. And so, who knows if this is a good experiment? Time will obviously tell. But it does have a lot of these local police agencies who are already perhaps maybe underfunded or understaffed or undertrained in the area of cybersecurity, that they might have to step up their game, and that's going to cost them money.
But have you heard anything from any lawmakers or representatives? Are you getting any feedback from anyone on that side?
Well, we've talked actually to some law enforcement, including Sheriff Don Barnes, who is the sheriff of Orange County, California. That is not a small county. It's not a poor county, right? Orange County, California is, kind of hoity-toity. It's got a lot of, let's say, high rent residents who probably pay a lot in local taxes in terms of property tax and whatnot. So they have the means to carry out a lot of law enforcement activities and have a strong mission with their sheriff's office. But even Sheriff Barnes, is saying, I don't know what we're going to do to keep up the level of cybersecurity enforcement that we've been doing without this type of resource.
What is the timeline that they're working with? I mean, we talked about that, the administration is cutting the funding. Is it done? Is it when the money runs out that they already have? Is it, do we no longer have it?
That money, Jake, is going to start running out by the end of the month.
By the end of September?
That far away. Yeah, that end of September, exactly.
So starting in October, we're looking at, on a local level, not having the degree of cybersecurity that we have at this moment today.
Potentially, but it could be different, again, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. There may be police agencies or sheriff's offices that say, you know what, we'll start paying for this. We've got the ability to do it, or we can pay for as much as we need, based on our own usage. We know how much we use of this, and we can come up with a way to pay for the services we do use. That's all possible. And in fact, that may be the model going forward. There's talk of a subscription-based model, if you will, for the agencies to subscribe to this effort, to this center, and get the get the services that they need, and maybe exclude the services they feel they don't need or don't use that much, and continue doing what they're doing. But there are going to be departments that just don't have this in their budget, and it's going to be a problem for them. And they're going to have to be creative if they want to keep up some level of their cybersecurity enforcement. And again, this has to do with everything from threats in the real world that find their way online in terms of messages and warnings and whatnot, to things like scams that so many people still fall for. And I get it, I'm a tech reporter, but I fell for one just not too long ago because I was ordering something from a website and it was a really good fake website, and I put in my credit card number and all of a sudden it didn't do anything. And then I looked at the URL and I said, this might not be the site I thought it was. And lo and behold, the next day someone tried using my credit card. Now I'm fine.
Evan, I'm sorry about that. I'll give you your money back, man. Fine, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't know it was you. All right, man.
All right.
Evan, you are a rock star, man. Thank you for the information on this. It's a fascinating topic and a story that I think is going to keep going for a while, man. We really, truly do appreciate your time. Evan Brown, Fox Tech reporter out of Miami. Brother, good to see you, man.
You too. Take care. Be well.
You too, man. All right, guys, just about 1:58. This is Chicago Live. We're going to roll to break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the 2 o'clock hour of Chicago Live. Brian Jackson here with you. We're going to start this 2 o'clock hour by heading out to the state of Pennsylvania, where we've learned that 5 law enforcement officers were shot, 3 fatally, in York County, Pennsylvania. We're waiting for an update on a press conference that we're going to bring to you live here on Chicago Live as soon as it happens. So far, what we know is that the officers that were serving a warrant and that law enforcement officers that were briefed on that investigation. Now, also, the shooter was shot and killed by police. That is according to the Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner. Also, we've learned that 2 officers are currently in critical but stable condition, and they're being treated at a hospital. This all happened yesterday, where we've learned that 5 officers were shot, 3 of them fatally. We are waiting for a live press conference that's going to take place. This took place in York County, Pennsylvania. If you're familiar with Pennsylvania at all, this is the county just south of, it looks like, Harrisburg in Hershey. Again, we are waiting for this press conference. Let's look and see what else we know about this so far. So far, officials have identified the suspect in this case as 24-year-old Matthew James Ruth. That is according to the Associated Press. To the officers, they were killed on Wednesday while they were following up on a domestic related investigation that started on Tuesday. And again, so far, a total of 5 officers were shot, 3 of them fatally, and 2 more officers were wounded in that shooting, and they are still in the hospital at this time. And police actually killed that 24-year-old suspect. Again, we're going to bring you that press conference live as soon as we get it right here on Chicago Live. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. Time is now 2:04. Looking ahead to this weekend, this Saturday is the Les Turner ALS Walk for Life at Soldier Field. This is the largest ALS Walk for Life in the Midwest. We're joined now by Laura Frevaletti. She's the CEO of the Les Turner ALS Foundation. We're also expecting a very special video message from Pope Leo XIV. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me. I cannot tell you how excited and privileged we feel to have this message from the Pope to be aired at our walk.
Well, we got to start with the obvious. How did that conversation start, and how did it all come together?
We have the privilege of supporting a local priest, Father Jim Halstead, who has ALS, who just happens to be a very long-term friend of the Pope. And he called and said, Laura, I've reached out to the Pope, whom he calls Bob, and asked him if he would record a message to air at the ALS Walk for Life. And Father Jim said, Laura, would you like us to do that? And I said, yes, please. And so it is a beautiful, welcoming, warm speech from the priest or from the Pope that recognizes caregivers, the scientists and researchers that we have at the Les Turner ALS Center at Northwestern Medicine, and all the families and caregivers who are there. It also recognizes our founders, Harvey and Bonnie Gaffin, who are still very active members of our board. It is an incredibly heartwarming, universal speech from the Pope. I can't wait for everyone to hear it.
Once you get this message from the Pope, what do you think that does to, I guess, putting this foundation on literally the worldwide level? Like, how does it kind of open up even more doors so you guys can continue to do more good?
Well, it is a real exciting opportunity because we continue to try to build awareness of ALS. There are researchers and scientists around the world searching for cures, preventative solutions for ALS, and this helps us broadcast that message. This also unites everyone who is caring for and supporting someone living with ALS. It's a complicated and can be quite devastating disease, and it unites people and gives them hope and the knowledge that they're not alone and that there are many people out there working for a cure and able to support them.
Laura, for people who are maybe a little unfamiliar with ALS, what do you wish more people understood about some of those day-to-day challenges that you were speaking on a little bit for people who are suffering from this disease?
ALS affects people in very different ways, which is what makes it a complicated disease. But people living with ALS may have difficulty breathing or speaking or walking, and they want to be seen and heard like everyone else. And sometimes it just takes a moment to pause and listen to what they're saying. The other thing I would add to that is that there are now many treatments and health measures that can be taken to enhance the quality of life of someone living with ALS. So we're in a period of great hope where we look for the next viable treatments and ways to enhance people's lives while they're living with ALS to make it a higher quality and more enjoyable life.
Can you explain a little bit the role of the Les Turner ALS Center at Northwestern Medicine and how they're helping advance ALS care as well as research?
Yes, absolutely both. We have 70 researchers at the Les Turner ALS Center working to find a cure. They are the world's leaders in revealing genetic causes of ALS. It helps us diagnose the disease earlier and get people the help they need so they can live longer and better lives. We also, at the Les Turner ALS Center, discovered an experimental drug called NU9, which is in the pipeline, and that's been approved for clinical trials. So one of the things at the clinic we're able to do is provide the highest number of clinical trials in the Midwest and provide that clinical research as well.
And for some of the money raised during this walk, how does it directly support both patients and their families here in the greater Chicagoland area?
Well, there are many ways that those dollars directly support people living with ALS. There's direct services. That means care coordination, equipment loans, financial assistance, respite care, support groups. ALS, because of its complications, is a very expensive disease to live with. Average costs can be $250,000 a year for the services and support that someone needs. We support the clinic, so funds donated go directly to research and to the clinic, and helping all those researchers in their experiments to reach toward a cure.
For somebody who maybe is unable to make it to the walk, are there ways that they can still contribute as well as support this cause?
Absolutely. We always need help in three ways. People to advocate for ALS, people to donate. They can go to our website at lesturners.org, and it's a big donate button. and they can join us and volunteer. So we are looking for people to help us all the time. We would love to see lots and lots of people come out to the walk. It is an amazing morning on the lakefront with about 1,500 walkers. We have about 152 teams that have come out. We have a dozen teams that have been with us for almost 20 years. And it's a feeling of hope and unity, and they'll be the first ones to see the Pope's message.
So I know you've seen the Pope's message. Can you give us a little preview? I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. I know you're going to make everybody wait.
Let me think about what I can say. You know, he talks about the researchers and caregivers and families and just how important they are to people living with ALS. He equates those people to 70 angels in a very eloquent way, as he has, of course. He talks about the compassion that caregivers have and the resilience of families and the dedication of the scientists to end ALS. It's a warm and very heartening message from the Pope.
And if somebody is unable to make the walk, where will they be able to see this message, maybe after its initial debut?
Well, it'll absolutely be on our website. It'll be on our social media channels. If you search for Turner ALS Foundation, you'll see it pop up. We certainly hope that you will cover it and show it, but we will certainly be broadcasting it and sharing it very proudly.
All right, Laura Frevaletti, the CEO of the Turner ALS Foundation. Thanks so much for your time, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to that message from Pope Leo XIV.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, appreciate your time. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back here on Chicago Live. All right, welcome back to Chicago Live. Time is now 2:15. At the top of the hour, we took you to a press conference we were waiting for it to start in York County, Pennsylvania, where 5 law enforcement officers were shot, 3 of them fatally. It looks like that press conference has just started. Let's listen in.
For hours yesterday, being walked through various aspects at the scene, which included also a review of body-worn camera footage, a review of dash cam footage, personally having a chance to see where there were various items of ballistics, physical evidence, and unfortunately, the location of our fallen officers. Based upon this review of information, I will go ahead and deliver an initial finding of fact. This is an initial one. There are many steps that need to be completed as part of this investigation. And there are many questions that I will not answer for you at this time because the investigation is ongoing. And there will be a second briefing once all of that information comes back and is complete. Those of you who know how we operate know that is what we do. We speak with what we can, when we can, but we will not go ahead and state or confirm anything that would be remotely incomplete and not decisive. So, what do we have here? Well, first off, Matthew J. Ruth, he is the actor. And this is the only time I will mention his name. After this, he will only be referred to as actor. What occurred begins actually on September 16th at approximately 11:23 p.m. We must start there because this began as an incident of domestic violence. There was a call that came in from the mother of his ex-girlfriend that the actor was spotted on her property with binoculars looking through the residence, looking through a window. The mother of the ex-girlfriend advised that it was a white male wearing camouflage and she could see him through a trail camera that was standing in her driveway. And while en route to the location, the mother of the ex-girlfriend advised that the male possibly came there in a black truck that was parked on Emig Road around the corner from the residence at 1879 Hare Road. Officers responded, and upon initial arrival to the property, they did not locate the male. They went to Emig Road and did observe the black 2000 Ford Ranger pickup truck parked along the road in the woods line. It was unoccupied, and then officers went back to the residence and spoke with both the ex-girlfriend of the actor and the mother of the actor. And the ex-girlfriend of the actor had advised that on 8/20 of 2025, an unknown person set her pickup truck on fire while it sat in her driveway. She advised that at the time she suspected that it was her ex-boyfriend who was the culprit, but she wasn't sure, so she requested that the matter not be investigated further. The ex-girlfriend then showed a still photo from the trail camera, and what it showed was a white male wearing all camouflage outfit, standing behind the ex-girlfriend's truck in the driveway. And the male is looking through a scope device with it pointed towards the residence. The ex-girlfriend identified the male in the photo as the actor, and she advised that they put the trail camera up after the incident on August 20th of 2025. The ex-girlfriend confirmed that the actor was, in fact, her ex-boyfriend, and she suspected again that he was involved in the incident of setting her vehicle on fire. She stated that they had dated for only a short period of time and that the actor had never been to her house nor had ever been invited there. The ex-girlfriend also advised that the actor owned and often drove a 2000 black Ford Ranger pickup truck. And when they were reviewing the photo, the officers noticed that the actor had an AR-15 style rifle slung across his chest while looking into the residence. The officers then proceeded over the next several hours, which included assistance as well from the York County Sheriff's Department through the use of their drone, to attempt to locate the actor. They could not find him, despite searching over the next several hours. A warrant was sworn out for the actor's arrest, and the charges in that matter included stalking and loitering and prowling at night. The next morning, detectives from the Northern York County Regional Police Department attempted to go ahead and locate and execute a search warrant on the known residence of the actor. Included in executing that search were 3 detectives: Detective Sergeant Cody Becker, Detective Mark Baker, and Detective Isaiah Emenheiser. 2 other detectives also participated in this search. They arrived at the actor's residence and communicated with his family at 12:11 p.m. They left the residence, having interviewed family and having conducted search at 1:23 p.m. At 2:02 p.m., Detective Sergeant Becker, Detective Baker, Detective Emenheiser, and 2 other Northern Regional detectives arrived on scene at 1879 Hare Road, the location of the incident the previous evening. They arrived and they were searching for the actor. Also accompanying them to assist was a deputy sheriff from the York County Sheriff's Department to again assist with drone action and finding individuals through the usage of a drone. The search went on for the actor, which included various outbuildings, and the drone was being employed to also check neighboring fields. During the course of this search, detectives went to the front door of the residence. They arrived at the door at 2:08 p.m. The initial officer who went to the door was Detective Emenheiser. Right behind him was Detective Baker. Following as well was Detective Sergeant Becker and another Northern York County Regional detective. Final detective remained behind as more of a perimeter view in looking out for the actor and securing the perimeter. Detective Emenheiser discovered that the door was unlocked. Having remembered that the door was left locked by the ex-girlfriend and mother who were not at the residence because they went somewhere else for their safety, they decided that they were going to go in. The door was open, and upon immediately opening the door, the actor repeatedly fired at the officers with multiple rounds from an AR-15 styled rifle with a suppressor, immediately striking Detective Baker, striking Detective Sergeant Becker, striking at Detective Emenheiser, who he and the other Northern York County Regional detective who were there closest to the house, as they tried to go back for cover position. He repeatedly fired upon them. All 4 detectives went down. The actor then proceeded to turn his attention to the deputy sheriff. The deputy sheriff and the other Northern York County Regional Detective began to position themselves to return fire. The Northern York County Regional Detective repeatedly fired at the actor. The actor did strike the deputy sheriff who was by his vehicle and also struck the vehicle. The deputy sheriff did himself remove his 9mm. The Northern York County Regional Detective was firing at the actor with his AR-15 style rifle. The actor repeatedly was firing his rifle at the deputy sheriff, striking him. The deputy sheriff went down and went to try to retrieve his rifle and go for safety, as well to take cover to return fire. The actor went up towards the roadway where the vehicles were to engage in fire with the deputy sheriff, continuing to fire at him. The deputy sheriff returned fire with his 9mm handgun. The Northern York County Regional Detective also was returning fire with his rifle. While up at the roadway when the actor was there was a final exchange of gunfire. After that exchange, the actor went down. The actor became deceased. Following this, the Northern York County Regional Detective immediately went to see about rendering aid. He immediately went down first to his fallen officers from Northern York County Regional Police Department by the house and discovered detectives that were non-responsive. Detective Sergeant Cody Becker, Detective Mark Baker, and Detective Isaiah Emenheiser were all killed.
And you've just been listening to a press conference happening outside of York County in Pennsylvania, where 5 officers were shot while they were following up on a domestic-related incident that began on Tuesday. The shooting continued into Wednesday. 3 officers were killed in this shooting with the suspect. 2 of the officers were also left in critical condition. The gunman was also shot dead by police at the scene. You were just getting a detailed look at what happened in this incident that did leave 3 members of the law enforcement family dead following that shooter. Also, the suspect in this case was killed by police in that shooting. Again, this happened in York County, Pennsylvania, which is about just south of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and just outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania as well. Time is now 2:29 on this edition of Chicago Live. We're going to take a short break and we're going to tell you a very empowering story coming from nearby Northwest Indiana. That's next when Chicago Live returns. Time is now 2:31 on Chicago Live. I'm Brian Jackson here with you. Our next story comes from Northwest Indiana. Gary, specifically, where two Indiana University Northwest students, they're giving back to the same neighborhood playground that they both grew up playing in as children. We're now joined by Elizabeth Downey and India Smith. They're leaders of the Black Student Union and My Sister's Keeper renovation project that has transformed this once aging park into now a welcoming space. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
So I want to start with, from both of you, what do you remember about this area and this playground specifically when you guys were both kids?
Go first. I remember when the playground was installed, it was just a swing set. And I grew up around the corner on 36 in Madison, and I would ride my bike and sneak over, because technically I wasn't supposed to be over there. But my sister and I would sneak over, swing, and then get back on our bikes and go home. But I remember it being like the only place in the area for us to have fun at.
Yeah, for me, I really remember the playground looking more so abandoned for a little while. I don't have really much recollection of anyone really playing on it. It looked unsafe, so I was never allowed to go there.
Obviously, that's a difference in age there, as it's kind of like, I guess the playground was kind of thriving at one point and then started heading in the opposite direction. Where did the idea come from you guys to help restore this playground and give it back, I guess, the jazz and the influence that it had years ago?
So the idea actually stemmed from our advisor, Antoine Hawkins. He's the advisor of the Black Student Union. He pointed out to us as the group of students on campus, like, hey, this playground needs some TLC, so why not be the ones to do it? And then a initiative in the city of Gary found us. It's called Love Your Block. And from then on, we just collaborated with them. They gave us all the resources we needed in order to get this project up and running and then to what it is today.
Share with us a little bit of details about what kind of condition was the park in before you guys made this move to help restore it.
It was pretty desolate. The swings were not safe for anyone to use. The ground area was very rocky and it was just a not safe environment for children. And now families anywhere from 2 years old to 20 can bring their children, families, they can have lunch together, play. There are 2 sets of swings, as well as monkey bars and little jungle gym. We have a rock garden. So it's a really nice, calming area for someone to come hang out at.
What do you think that means for the mentals of not just the kids who get a chance to see this beautifully renovated space, but also the parents who take them there, and they can now feel more of a sense of pride about their neighborhood? What do you think that this does for just the overall confidence of the community?
For me, it's a full circle moment because I saw it where it was at its inception point, and now for it to be here, I have an 11-year-old daughter, so I can bring her there and play while doing homework. It's right across the street from the school I attend. It's just really beautiful to be able to say, hey, we assisted with the fruition of a playground that not only our own children, but our grandchildren and other people's kids can play at.
What was it like your first time seeing kids get a chance to go across those monkey bars for the first time?
Oh, goodness. I wanted to cry. I really wanted to cry because it was just so beautiful to see that we've done this thing to give back to the kids and even their parents, because at one point their parents were in the same position. They wanted to play at the park, but it wasn't safe. So seeing them enjoy the space and having fun, and even some of them actually taking care of it, it was an amazing thing to see. It was very wholesome and very just comforting.
How would you guys have say maybe this project has changed the way you see yourselves? Because you guys are not only leaders, you're also change makers in this Gary community.
Go ahead.
So I've always seen myself as a leader, but having been born in Gary and then I left for a while and coming back, now it's kind of like, well, you were meant to be here and this is part of the reason you're back. So I'm just glad that I'm able to be a part of the change in Gary, the positive, sustainable change in Gary.
I'm not from Gary. I live in Maryville, just a town over, but my mom and really my whole family grew up in Gary. So being able to help restore her childhood home in the area that she came from, honestly, is just an amazing impact I can do.
And looking ahead, do you guys see yourself continuing this kind of work? Maybe you started with this park. Are there other projects, future projects coming down the pipeline that you may see yourselves getting involved in, since this one obviously went so well?
Definitely. If there are other opportunities with Love Your Block or even with the city of Gary, as presidents of both of our organizations, we are more than willing to hop in and jump on board. I would love to see more happening in the city of Gary, especially to help facilitate good things for our youth.
Hey, could you guys share a little bit more details for our viewers at home who maybe they're not familiar with the Your Block initiative? What exactly do they do, and what do they mean for this Northwest Indiana / Gary community?
Okay, so Love Your Block is an initiative that was brought to Gary. They went around to, 3 different areas in Gary, and they're just looking to beautify, restore, and make Gary a true home again. The saying that Greater Gary it proves itself true, because that is actually what this initiative does. It puts that into plan, it puts it into motion, while also looping in the community to also help and restore their city and their blocks and their homes.
And for both of you growing up in both Gary as well as Maryville, right outside of Gary, what does it mean to have the support of local leaders and local nonprofits that are investing in you guys' home?
It's really comforting to know that our leaders are willing and able to assist us in things that we need. It is really edifying to see that when you tell your mayor's cabinet, hey, this is what I would like to see done, and they do it, that feels really good, because that means our voices have been heard. And if our voices have been heard, other people's voices can be heard. So I just hope that others watch this, see us, and understand that, hey, we're just 2 girls from Indiana University Northwest. If you want to do some work in Indiana, specifically in Gary, you can. Reach out, ask. It can be done.
All right. Thank you both for your time this afternoon. Elizabeth and India, as you guys took this playground that was a big part of your childhood and have kind of restored it to now future generations can enjoy going forward. Thank you both for your time. All right, and also our very own Terrence Lee. He's going to be heading out to Gary. He's working on a story. He's going to show you exactly what that new playground, what it looked like in the past. I'm sure he's going to have some pictures or video, and as well as what it looks like today as it has been fully restored for the next generation of Gary and Northwest Indiana youth to enjoy going forward. All right, time is now 2:40 on this edition of Chicago Live. Now we're heading, and we're going to be speaking with Dr. Michelle Nichols from the Adler Planetarium. We've just learned there's a new milestone with now 6,000 confirmed exoplanets. We want to know, what does this mean for the scientific community and the general public as a whole? Dr. Nichols, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I do want to start with, for people at home who aren't familiar, what exactly is a exoplanet, and why is this 6,000 number so significant?
So an exoplanet is a planet that orbits another star. So we have our own solar system with one star and a group of planets. Numbers a little bit controversial, 8, 9, whoever you ask, it might have a different answer, planets that go around it. There are other stars with planets that go around them that create their own, they have their own systems. And so, but we have that general term for those planets as exoplanet. Now, the first planet that was found around a star similar to our sun was found almost exactly 30 years ago. So just slightly over 30 years ago. And since that time, just over 6,000 planets have been found orbiting other stars, and several of those systems have more than one planet. But basically, we're finding that in just a short few decades, we've been able to find so many, and then we know that planets are obviously very plentiful in our Milky Way galaxy.
What would you say is behind that acceleration, as you just mentioned, just in the last couple of decades or so, this exploration has kind of exploded. Is it kind of advances in technology? Is it more people paying attention to this? What are you seeing from your view?
All the above. So advances in technology, at first the number of discoveries was relatively a trickle. It was individual studies of individual stars or maybe a few from a survey effort of some sort. And then we had the Kepler spacecraft, the Kepler telescope, which orbited and stared at a spot in the sky for over 4 years and gathered information on about 150,000 stars all at the same time. And we found several thousand planets just from that one effort. And now we've got a follow-on telescope called TESS. And that particular telescope is finding even more. And so as our technology gets better to be able to find these faint signals of different ways of being able to find these things, as we just are staring at more stars in the sky, we've got the opportunity to find so many more of these planets. So it's pretty exciting.
Speaking of finding more, NASA has mentioned potentially an additional 8,000 potential candidate planets that are currently awaiting confirmation. What exactly is that process like of moving from a planet candidate to now we officially have a new planet?
So most of the time with the efforts that find these planets in the first place, they'll stare at a star for a while, see if they can find a planet around it. There's different ways of doing that, but maybe they find evidence of a planet. Well, that particular survey effort might have to move on to another part of the sky, or the telescope has to be used for something else. And so the follow-on to make sure that it wasn't something else that caused that signal to maybe kind of look like it might be a planet, they want to confirm that. And so that's being done with other telescopes, usually on the ground. And so we've got telescopes in space that might find them. Telescopes on the ground then do the grunt work of finding more and more of these and confirming them, that they really are out there. So that takes a longer period of time. And so it's why we've got 6,000, actually I checked this morning, 6,009 confirmed as of this morning, with another 8,000 plus that we still have to do that follow-on work to really make sure it wasn't something else that caused that signal to kind of look like it could be a planet.
Those are some big numbers. As journalists like to say, I didn't major in math. How do scientists decide which of these planets to actually follow up on and do more research when there's so many to choose from?
Yeah. So honestly, a lot of it has to do with the brightness of the planet. How close is it? And the closer it is, the better resolution that we have to point a telescope like, say, the Webb Space Telescope, and take the very, very precious time that is available, limited time that we can devote that telescope to maybe staring at that planet and figuring out, hey, does it have an atmosphere? If it does, what is that atmosphere made of? What are the conditions like on this planet? What's the temperature? Is it a big one, a small one? There's a lot of details that we can figure out. But it takes some of these really seriously important big telescopes to take a little bit of time that they've got to stare at one of these for a while and do a lot of those follow-on studies to really hone in on a bunch of these. But a lot of times it has to do with, the closer it is, the more we can tend to learn about it, because it's just physically easier to do that. If stuff's pretty far away, it's a lot harder to do that. So a lot of times distance plays a big part in that.
When you're speaking to some of your colleagues in the scientific community, is there a general consensus on maybe just how closer we are to finding out that there is life out there on another planet besides Earth?
There are so many astronomers out there. They want to know that life is there. They want to be the ones to go, yes, it's here. The hardest thing we will ever do is have any sort of confirmation, because we can't go to these planets. We can't see them up close. We have to basically rule out everything else as a possibility before we could say, yes, it's whatever signal we're getting, it's due to life. That will be the absolute hardest thing we could ever do, because someone will go, but what if it's this? Or, but what if it's this other idea? What if it's all these other things that have nothing to do with life? We have to rule them all out to be able to then confidently say, for this thing we can't go to, that it's life on another world. I would say we have a better chance of confirming if life existed previously in our own solar system, before we might maybe confirm something someplace else. Just again, due to distance and accessibility of this stuff to us here on Earth.
Well, speaking of that distance, are there any new missions or technologies that are maybe on the horizon that will kind of cut down that lag time that you were speaking of? And maybe we're not going to get there in the next 10 years, but maybe 25, 30 years down the line.
Yep. So there's a new telescope that will hopefully be launched in the next couple years or so, called the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. And it will look at wide pieces of sky. And so that means it'll see a lot of stars all at the same time. And so that will be a way that we can use to start to find even more of these possibilities for these planets. And start to find even more of them that might be Earth-sized, because a lot of them aren't. Maybe Earth temperature, because a lot of them aren't. And start to find out more about these things. And then there's another telescope that, if it gets funded, could launch by 2041. Maybe later, to be able to really start to study these things directly. And learn more about them. So we're talking several decades worth of the potential of these. But the Nancy Grace Roman telescope is coming, and this other one could be another 15, 20 years or so before that one happens.
15 years will be here before we know it, for sure.
Exactly.
If maybe somebody is a parent and watching this at home and talking to their little ones about this, is there anything at the Adler Planetarium currently happening that can maybe explain this process to kids on as we look further into, I guess, space exploration?
So we have our own observatory that's open on every clear Wednesday evening. Basically, the rule is, if the door's open, please come in. And we have our big telescope out there. And we absolutely love questions about, and folks want to just come in, look through our telescope. We can start to look at planets, or we can look at planets in our own solar system. Saturn will be visible this fall. And we then can have a great conversation. If folks want to ask us questions, please definitely talk to us about all that. We've also got our Other Worlds exhibit, which opened a little while back. But Other Worlds is all about planets in our own solar system, worlds in our own solar system, and worlds elsewhere. So talk to us directly, look through our scope, check out Other Worlds, the exhibit, and we've got a wide variety of ways for you to interact with us and learn more about this.
Dr. Michelle Nichols from the Adler Planetarium, you have been a wealth of knowledge this afternoon. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, time is now 2:50. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back on Chicago Live. Welcome back. Time is now 2:52 here on Chicago Live. Next, we're going to talk Chicago real estate. We're joined by Sammy Lubeck. He is billed as Chicagoland's real estate agent. He's joining us now, of course, a day after we finally saw the feds make a 0.25% of a cut. Sammy's going to join us to break down what this means for somebody maybe in the market to either buy a home or possibly sell theirs. Thanks so much for your time.
Happy to be here. Always happy to talk real estate with you guys.
So how would you say specifically that the Fed's latest rate cut is going to impact mortgage rates here in Chicagoland market over, let's say, the next 3 to 6 months?
I think realistically, the greatest impact it's going to have is on the mental confidence of buyers right now and increase their buying power. What a lot of people do not understand is they immediately think that when there's a Fed rate cut, that the mortgage rates are going to naturally go down that exact same amount immediately. Last Friday, we saw a tremendous decrease in the average mortgage rate around the country. 30 years were down to just over 6.1% last Friday. And then we had the Fed rate cut over the last couple of days. And magically today, rates are actually up to right around 6.37. So I think that it really comes down to having that knowledge base that our Fed rate cut does not always mean that the mortgage rates are going to go down and correlate exactly the same way.
Now, Sammy, you just mentioned just because the Fed is cutting rates doesn't mean that mortgage rates are also going to go down. The Fed has also hinted that they could possibly do 1 or 2 more cuts before the end of the year. What does this mean for prospective home buyers? Should they be waiting, or is it a better time to maybe get in now before the rates shoot back up?
I think the majority of buyers are always looking for that perfect time to buy a house and get that perfect rate, the lowest it can possibly go. I would love to be able to sit here and provide that crystal ball and say, you know what, on October 14th, that's when you should buy a house. Buyers need to constantly reassess the situation they're in on a given day, check with their mortgage brokers, check with their real estate agents, and find out what the average rates are on a given day. But I do think that the Fed coming down and rates coming down a bit last week, of course, that spurred on a lot of buyers to maybe check out the listings online and see what's going on and see if there are homes they want to see. I think it's really easy to put the cart before the horse and think that there are going to be all these homes ready to go for them just because the rates have come down. But they really need to see if there are any houses out there that interest them. And that's why it's so critical for them to start having those conversations with their real estate agents and find out if there are houses that are worth seeing, go see them. And then they can truly assess their buying power with their lender and make sure everything lines up perfectly.
Well, you mentioned possibly go see houses if you're interested. Paint the picture for us. What does the inventory look like here in both inside the city as well as the nearby suburbs?
So homes.com recently put out a report of listings in August of 2024 versus August 2025. Chicago listings went up about 2.7% over last August. Well, that was the third lowest of any metropolitan area. The only 2 areas that had actual decreases in inventory were the San Francisco area and San Antonio. But in other parts of the country, you saw huge increases in inventory in areas like Miami and Raleigh, North Carolina, and Los Angeles and Vegas. They saw huge increases in year-over-year listings. As far as Chicagoland, yes, we have seen an uptick in listings over the last month or so. There's always kind of ironically, a spring in the fall market when you see these listings come on the market, even though majority of families out there, they want to be established for the school year. But once we get to the months of September and October and November, you have fewer people looking for homes, which means you're going to have less competition when it comes to a popular house. which is going to help the situation, because in the first half of the year, with all these multiple bid situations, it was very challenging for buyers to get out there and win one of these battles.
And I'm glad you went there with this conversation. Do you anticipate, with these kind of modest drops that we're seeing right now, what is this going to mean for the first-time home buyer? Is that process going to be a little bit easier for them now, or is affordability still a little bit too high?
I think prices are going to continue to go up. I think it's so important for first-time home buyers to have those critical conversations with people that have been in this industry for a long time, that know what they're talking about. Realtors, lenders, real estate attorneys, their friends, family members can provide some great advice, but at the same time, a lot of people have opinions and everybody's a know-it-all. But the realtors and lenders that are getting stuff done in this industry on a daily basis, they're going to be the best knowledgeable resource for these first-time home buyers. I think prices are going to continue to go up. If you have an ability to look for a house in the second half of the year, once families and students are situated at schools, you're going to have less competition. So it might be a tick easier for these first-time home buyers to get a deal on a house. But once the spring market comes, if the mortgage rates are a little bit lower, sure, they'll have a little bit more power in their buying power, but they're going to have a ton more competition once the spring market comes.
All right, Sammy, we only got about 30 seconds left. Quickly, what are one or two neighborhoods that first-time buyers should be looking at that maybe they wouldn't have considered?
I think realistically, it all comes down to, if it's a family, it's good schools. If you have a new job, you're looking, to be within a certain area. It's really difficult to look at one part of the city. You're talking about millions of people. For investors, obviously the South Side of Chicago, South Loop, that's seen still as a solid investment because you still have so much potential for it to boom. I think it's so critical for any buyer out there to really assess their situation, from a familial, a work situation, school situation. Look at your situation, talk to the professionals, figure out what's going to be important to you, and then go find a house with a real estate agent like me.
All right, Sammy Lubeck, billed as Chicagoland's real estate agent. Thanks so much for your time, and that's going to do it for this edition of
go into those evaluations. The reason why I do not want to comment on any of those matters at this time is, first of all, we have autopsies that are pending. They're occurring Friday and Saturday. There will be autopsy reports. And then there will be ballistic reviews. And I want to make sure that the next time I come before you, that I am able to state definitively what the order and aspects of the shots were from which weapon. So accordingly, that's why I am being resistant at this time. My statement of justification is blanket for every member of law enforcement, regardless what, where, whom, every single one of them, every action they took was 100% justified. But the specifics will be coming. But I must have those aspects of the investigation completed.
Could be self-inflicted.
What I have done at this time is I am waiting to go ahead and hear every aspect of the ballistics. There are many things that I do know. I do not commit to anything without having all information. So if I sound uncommittal, it's because every time that somebody says a comment of speculation, so many times it gets proven wrong, and then it leads to more harm than good. So I am only going to state that it was a final exchange of fire. We know that for a fact from the evidence that we have. Following the final exchange of fire, the actor became deceased. So I will leave it at that. You will know more in the future. I will take one more question because I know many of these questions will be the subject of the next briefing, and I hate having to repeatedly say this to all of you.
Knowing that the actor was potentially armed, what precautions did your detectives and officers take when issuing a warrant for potentially dangerous individual?
So they did get the arrest warrant, as I stated. They did a complete search of the whole area that night. They went over to the actor's home the next day. They made sure that the township police department of the area where he lived, that they were alerted. And these are plainclothes detectives, but they also do wear their bulletproof vests. They were equipped to go ahead and go into harm's way, but the unfortunate aspect is, given the nature of where, when, and how the ambush by the actor occurred, that there is no time for response. They did go ahead and proceed as you would expect law enforcement to proceed to try to protect our community. There was multiple communication. There was use of drones to try to go ahead and determine where he potentially could have been hiding. So yes, they were actively looking to protect the community. And additionally, I will add, as I stated before, the ex-girlfriend and mother who were directly in harm's way, they were not there. They were staying elsewhere, and they knew not to come back. And it was law enforcement who were the ones that went. It was our detectives from Northern York County Regional and our sheriff's deputy who went to make sure and see if they could provide ultimate safety. And rather than being able to provide ultimate safety, they wound up having to provide ultimate sacrifice.
Aside from car fire potential, or were there any other threats made to this woman or her family that you're aware of?
I'm not going to go into anything beyond what was the previous affidavit of probable cause from which I was citing that contained the stalking allegations. There are further aspects from interviews that continue to be developed, but that's the last, that is the last part of information I want to stick to from that aspect for right now, what is known, defined of public record, because it's very important to do so at this occasion. Thank you all very much for being here.
Chief,
thank you.
Spell the names of the slain officers, please, and their ages.
Okay, thank you.
All right, just listening in there to this, a very long update from the officials there in York County, Pennsylvania. A very gruesome and horrific shooting that took place at the residence there as 3 officers tragically killed. And they were asking about the identities of them. Those 3 officers include Detective Sergeant Cody Baker, Detective Mark Becker, and Detective Isaiah Ammenheiser there in that area. And it was very difficult to talk about because some of these scene videos, they don't really do justice of what we were hearing, as this was a domestic violence call initially that led to this, as this individual was inside the home of an ex-girlfriend and their mother. Of course, the police coming to this as they were arrest warrant out for the arrest of this individual for stalking, for loitering. So very graphic in nature. And I do want to break it down because obviously a lot of facets to this case. Let's be joined right now by David Shapiro, former FBI special agent. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And these officers walked into an ambush at this home in a very rural point of Pennsylvania. You were listening into the entirety of this. They didn't want to get into speculation about this, what they're calling an actor there. They identified him. What was your big takeaway?
It's tragic all around. I mean, the officers they're soldiers in support of the rule of law, right? And it's tempting to try to imagine a different and better way of doing what they did so that they wouldn't have to sacrifice their lives. So I have nothing to say about what they did. They were truly helping society, helping the woman,